Hello and welcome to the very 17th episode of your third favorite show on the Stat Check Network. It is time for episode 17 of Take All Comers, Child's Play, Charity Hammer 2024, and Dicing Death 2. We have been absent for too damn long. Forces it be have been keeping us down, and by those forces, I mean these stupid things called lives and schedules. They're over now. That's a lie. My life and the lives of my compatriots is still happening, as are their schedules. But there was an alignment of the stars, and we are here to bring you some hot and fresh Warhammer 40,000 content in the calm before the storm. We've got Champions Cup coming up next week, and the Rose City Ruffians will be there in force. But before we even pretend to think about that, we got to cover the past. In particular, I was at Child's Play. No, I was at Charity Hammer. Lukas was at Dicing Death. And we've got to bring you some hot and fresh content covering those events and some pretty sweet runs featuring Tau, featuring Vanguard Nids, and featuring the Wolves. But before we jump into any of that nonsense, and let me tell you, there's going to be some nonsense in today's episode, I got to check in with the boys. How we doing today, Lukas?
I'm doing great, man.
Excellent howl at a reasonable volume level, so you don't kill the headphone users. I love it.
Didn't want to annihilate anyone's
respect.
ears. Actually, I'm happy to annihilate people's ears, but yeah, no, I'm doing well, man. Today was my last day of work before heading down to Champions Cup. My flight leaves tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., so I gotta get up nice and early. But luckily, the Portland airport is usually super chill. For those who've visited the city before, you'll know that it's a really lovely place to fly in and out of. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident about the event and the travel associated. And nice to get a couple days off work as well, because this week was an absolute shit show. But yeah, it's gonna be really fun event. It's gonna be nice to get some exposure to the true team scene for a couple of the recent local talents. Makes it sound way too crazy and formal, but it's going to be nice to get a couple of the guys from up here in Portland and Washington that we've been trying to push into the team scene for a little while. Some real exposure at a big event to competition. It's going to be very fun, and yeah, I'm just very excited to see people and to play a bunch of Warhammer at the highest level, and to do the little pairing card things. We got our cool little pairing cards, which I'm super excited about. So yeah, honestly, doing very well, and very excited for this coming weekend. How about you, Nick? How are you?
I'm doing okay. Just recently moved, so that's why I don't have a webcam today for those watching. For those listening, nothing has probably changed. Yeah, I'm excited to be talking Warhammer again. Haven't really thought about Warhammer in a little bit. I know Champs Cup will be an exciting thing to follow along. Unfortunately, I'll not be able to attend, but I'm excited to hear how it goes and watch with interest. I know Joe's going to be streaming the event, so probably have it up all weekend. Yeah, I know we got a lot of local events, right? Like Teams has kind of taken over our local scene. We have bi-weekly Teams nights at this point at our local gaming club, and I'm excited to return to that next week when you guys get back.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I think so. Yeah, the clubhouse where we do this is called the Ordo Clubhouse, which is the most unassuming little attic you've ever seen. But it's recently become kind of a haven for a bunch of people to get together. And like Nick said, it's like every other week at this point, we're putting together 2 8-man teams and just going at it, getting people some Matrix experience, and seeing folks go through the same process that I went through 2 years ago for Team USA, or that we all went through, right? Where we're learning what a Matrix is, and not to be too conservative, but not be too aggressive with our ratings. I mean, seeing all that from the other perspective of a veteran is pretty cool. So yeah, I agree. Those are very fun nights. How about you, Tyler? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. And yeah, it's super exciting to guide those guys in, not only because, obviously we've been through that process before, but also the process itself has changed so much since then. And suddenly realizing just all the different layers of nonsense that are going on with how complicated our matrices have gotten and how in-depth the lingo and the strategy has become. It really gives you a sec to take a step back and appreciate the journey that got us here. So I'm super excited for Champs Cup. It's going to be awesome. We're going to take on some boys who I think we're going to punch up a little bit. I don't think we're getting a whole lot of respect in the international community right now, but I got faith in my boys. We got some sick lists, and it's going to be an awesome time. I'm just getting off the back of Charity Hammer, which is just off the back of another. I didn't even talk about this on the show. I captained a local 5-man's team with my OG team, the North Bays, here in Northern California. We had a great time up at SonomaCon. We ended up in third place there. It was a ton of fun. So I've been all up and down on the West Coast, and now we're going to Dallas. I am moving out of the country. I'm moving to Spain on Tuesday, for those of y'all who may not know that. For about a year. Shouldn't be anything crazy, but I'm very excited about that. So there's just like a ton of plates going on right now. So I am a little bit of a ball of stress and energy, but I'm super excited to break down some awesome Warhammer. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, boys. Pro tip, Tyler, get when the slides are ready, add them to the StreamYard so that you can actually pull them up.
That's crazy how that works, dude.
Wild. Who would have thunk it? And of
it's
course,
honestly
StreamYard...
it's okay though, because like we've never done this before, so it's okay to make the mistake the first couple times.
Exactly. We've only been running podcasts for several years at this point.
3 years? Like 3+ years?
All right, here we go. Let's jump into it. I've got Charity Hammer up front, and then we'll break down Dicing Death afterwards, just kind of go in chronological order here. Sweet. Nick, you want to give us a quick breakdown here on what Charity Hammer is and what it's all about?
I mean, I can. I wasn't there this year, so like you might have more recent details. So if there's anything I missed, just totally. I guess feel free to fill it in. Charity Hammer is an event ran up here in the Pacific Northwest once a year, usually in the summer or early fall. It's put on by Colin Sherman, who used to, run the Best in Tabletop Network, and still keeping Charity Hammer around. So the goal is to just raise money for a charity called Child's Play, which I believe its goal is to just kind of get board games, other games, help make sick kids' lives better, sort of thing. So yeah, I know there's a bunch of people that flew in for it, people from the local area who drove in as well. And it's like a big, 72-hour streaming event.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got 3 different streams going, one of which was War Games Live. Big shout out to Joe for donating his time and all of his proceeds from that weekend. And then some. He donated some of his Patreon money as well to the cause. Child's Play being a great organization that are providing toys and video games to kids in hospitals and women and children in domestic abuse shelters in the U.S. and in Europe. So we're really glad to be partnered with them. As far as everyone who's watching is concerned, they donate money, both out of the generosity of their hearts and to purchase raffle tickets, which then raffle off a whole bunch of goodies, a bunch of new in-box Warhammer stuff, and then the big grand prize, I think $800 of store credit donated by our boys up at Aegis Games. Noah Badome, Lee Steiger, and their whole crowd. Wonderful group of people who put on Cascade Clash as well, which is going on in the near future. Check that out. So there's a bunch of nonsense going on to watch in the streams, a bunch of silly games, but there's also a GT. It's technically a 16-person single elimination player RTT, but they call it a GT. They just shrunk it down. It used to be 32. A bunch of other nonsense. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about today is the worst RTT, which was a really fun exercise. The idea, it's kind of based on the Goonhammer Blunderdome, but a little bit less extreme. You've got 8 players participating who each submit what they believe to be the worst list. The goal of the list is that they still make some amount of sense. They're still vaguely cohesive. Like a person could, a 12-year-old boy could bring this to a RTT and not, be entirely laughed out of the room for, you're not supposed to make it intentionally awful. Like initially Matt Evans submitted a list that had Old One Eye and then a whole bunch of planes. So it had no Synapse and only 2 OC from Old One Eye himself. And while this was hilarious, and that's done Matt, this was summarily rejected. So you're playing vaguely reasonable stuff. And then you're trying to play against really high quality players as you are handing the list over to your opponent, to other players who are fielding it. So for example, I was playing Tau, a list written by Donald Plummer that I'll get into in a second here. And what's great about this is that it really allows you to focus on the specifics and the generalities and the fundamentals of Warhammer instead of honing so much in on your particular tools and using them in very particular synergistic ways. It's a lot more about, hey, how good are you at on the fly assessing, target prioritization, and also how the math is going to work out into each other. How good is your screening? How good is your objective control? How good is your scoring? How well are you seeing the macro game here instead of focusing super hard on tuned lists? So it's a lot of fun. And I'm going to jump right into that right now. Lukas, I know you played some Tau. You want to run me through my Kauyon list here that Donald wrote for me?
Sure. Yeah. So Donald Plummer wrote the following Kauyon list for Tyler to play at the worst RTT. He didn't know that Tyler was going to play it, but he did write this list. He has a Cold Star with 3 missile pods and a
shield generator.
That's it. With Exemplar the Kauyon, they're probably joined to nobody. Hilarious. We've got an Ethereal with 3 Unity Devastation, whatever the hell that is. We got a Firesight team. We've got a Kroot Flesh Shaper and a Lone Spear and a Trail Shaper. So 2 of the little rat characters and 1 of the funny Lone Op Lizards. We've got 3 squads of 10 Strike teams. Jesus Christ. 10 Kroot Carnivores, 12 Farstalkers.
No, try again.
20 Kroot Carnivores. So used to the minimum squad sizes, man. Is that a squad of 6 Stealths as well?
Yes.
Oh, God. 6 Rampagers, a Krutox, 2 squads of 5 Hounds, and 3 squads of 3 Piranhas. Oh, and then also a Fortification. He's got a Tidewall fucking shield line, gun line, whatever the hell it's called.
This list is awesome. So yeah, this was a very, very funny list. The only reason I'm bringing this up because I want to talk about the Tidewall because I love this fortification so much. I ended up winning this RTT with this list, which was a ton of fun, in part because the list is probably a little bit too good. 9 Piranhas, they all have Fusion Blasters and Secret Missiles, is a lot of Piranha, so I actually had some decent output. The Rampagers got some good work done. The Cold Star got some good work done. Exemplar of the Kauyon Cold Star, even with missile pods, just like keeps putting down the pain. The 20-man Kroot unit, which has both of the solo dudes joined to it, and then has the Lone Spear handing them full rerolls to hit at range and in melee, is hilarious. I loved that unit. I highly recommend trying it out. But I just want to pull up here. Here's the finals of that event of myself versus Steve Trimble on a Demons list that Chuck wrote, which is also way too good. I have like very little kill power, and this Demons list had 6 Exalted Flamers, 3 on foot, 3 on chariot, and those things just shoot way too hard for this format, but we had a ton of fun. We were playing Burden of Trust, which is awful, and he ended up basically tabling me. But at the very end here, you can see the Tidewall, this giant blue phallus on my home field objective. Steve's holding every objective. It's just locked down. We were tied on primary at the end of battle round 3. So we both end up secret missioning. Right, and he pretty obviously secret missions Unbroken Wall, hold 3 objectives, and I secret mission, apparently to his surprise, War of Attrition, get battle line in your opponent's home field. We're playing table quarters here. So at the end of the game, I have 2 strike squads left and the Tidewall, and that's it. And Steve is on every objective. And I went second, and then so bottom 4, my Tidewall here swings around. This is why the Tidewall is so funny, is because it's like 14 inches long and only a couple inches wide. So it pivots for 2, just wild numbers of inches. So you swing it like a hammer is what it feels like when this thing moves. He makes this huge charge into a skull cannon on that center objective and gets into combat with it. And Steve's like, all right, whatever, dude. Anyway, I take all the objectives. And I've got 2 squads of strikes in there, one of whom gets in right after this clip is made, and the other of whom was already in there. And one of the teams gets out without the Ethereal, the one who was in there, gets out backwards, stands on my home field, takes it away from Horticulus Slimix and his Beast of Nurgle friend. That's what was on my home field. Both denying Unbroken Wall and in case he took command insertion for some crazy reason. And then the other squad with the Ethereal yeets out the front of the thing, like a full 20 inches away from where they got in, without the thing having moved more than maybe 6 inches. And then advances forward, and especially with the extra movement from the Ethereal being on the hover drone, not that they needed that, take the midfield center objective and also tow into his deployment zone, denying his secret mission, accomplishing my secret mission, and winning the game by 3 points.
Goated.
This was awesome. I highly recommend you check out this game. It's on War Games Live. I've got a screenshot of it here. I'll try to remember to go back and link some of these things in the description so you can check them out off a link. But this game was a ton of fun. I had a game before this into JT McDowell playing the list Steve wrote, which was like 30 Raptors Warp Talons. It was 30 Raptors and 10 Terminators. And I zoned the table so the Terminators never came in. And then I tabled him. It was awesome. So lots of crazy nonsense.
Tidewall is so silly looking.
It looks ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, and it genuinely has viable competitive play. I think that you could totally build a list that includes this thing and not be entirely meming. The only thing that really holds it back is that it doesn't have for the greater good, so you can't guide it. If you could guide it, I would genuinely think it was competitive. Because you can't, it's definitely in that like niche, cute choice kind of thing, but you're not meming for playing it. Totally give it a try, because it basically lets you put 2 squads of Fire Warriors into one place at a time. If you want to go searching for for this VOD, it's under where do I have it? Oh, I had it a second ago. I guess I lost it. But this is the finals of the worst RTT. This was like day 2 in the late of the day, I think. But yeah, again, I'll try to link it below. Tons of fun. Really recommend watching this whole event. It's really great. Again, spread across a couple streams because it really shows your fundamentals and your techniques without being too much about the specifics of your army. Anyway, with that out of the way, I want to talk about the most specifics of my army. It's time for the really long segment where Tyler rambles about his Vanguard Nids list for a while, and then we'll blow through some games and get on to Lucas's tournament quickly, I promise. So, here is the actual cream of the crop GT list that I brought to the Charity Gamer GT. This is my Vanguard Nids list. For those of you who have been following the story very closely, I took Vanguard Nids to War Masters with a list that had 3 big snakes, 2 Molochs, and a Trigon. It had the Zoanthropes, had a lot of cool pieces that I really liked, and it was really bad. I went 3-2-1. Yeah, because I lost to Blood Angels against Zach Herstetter, a buddy, and I lost to that guard player with lots of Dorns in the last round. And then I had a 10-10 against the other guard player. Yeah, that list was bad. I then tried a list written by a gal called Amy. She has a French last name. I don't remember what it is because she's from France, who beat the crap out of my buddy Zach Kerstetter. And I was like, this list is awesome. I took it to the teams event, the 5s that we went to a couple weeks ago. That was a ton of fun. Still didn't love it though, because it was missing the best model in the Vanguard Onslaught army, which is the Winged Hive Tyrant. So I just adjusted the list a little bit to fit him in, ended up dropping a Lictor, the Parasite, and the Von Ryans, which are all really fun pieces that I thoroughly enjoyed, but just seemed like the right cuts to make it happen, and I am thrilled with the results. This list goes incredibly hard. I'll run down on the pieces and kind of why they're there, and then we'll get into some games to talk about how it works. So I've got a Broodlord, I've got Death Leaper, I've got a Neurotyrant with Hunting Grounds. That's the enhancement where whenever an enemy unit arrives from reserves, they take a Battle Shock check. This never came up over the course of the entire weekend because almost nobody reserved stuff, and when they did, I forgot. It's 20 points. I think it's still a good enhancement, but it's definitely not necessary if you see a better place to use them. We've got the Winged Hive Tyrant, we've got 2 Winged Primes, 10 Gargoyles, a Biovore, a pair of Exocrines, 10 Stealers, 5 Stealers, 5 Stealers, 2 Lictors, 2 Neurolictors, a squad of 3 Raveners, and 2 full squads of 6 Melee Warriors. This list has a whole bunch of melee like my previous Vanguard one did, but it has this MSU element to it that just makes it so much more effective. 5 Stealers and a 5-man Stealer squads with the Neuroloid from the Neurotyrant are just an absolute menace of a hit unit. Scout 8, Move 8, Advance and Charge. And when they get there, they have 20 attacks, hitting on rerolling 1s at 5-2-1, rerolling 1s to wound against targets on an objective. That is devastating to any chaff unit or any 5-man Marine unit that wants to go stand on an objective. It just gets the job done, and it's 5 dudes, so it's 5 OC, so it holds the point afterwards. Even if, the Sergeant with his Power Fist survives, they have 2 wounds and a 5-up invul. They can take a beating on the return. They're 75 points. They're 75 points. They're so good. So love them. Absolutely love playing double melee warriors. If you've never gotten to the experience of swinging a melee warrior squad into a battle shock target, oh man, it's euphoric. Whatever they're hitting, as long as it's not T12, it just goes away. This unit is 36 attacks, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, sustained at strength 6, AP 2, 1 damage, rerolling to wound from Twin Linked, and then 6 attacks from the Prime at, I think he's 7-2-1 because of Synapse. Not twin linked, but again, hitting on 2s, you're rolling 1s. And then the whole unit is +1 to wound because their target is battle shocked. It's gross. Oh man. They just kill stuff. And they are made of paper, so they can't really take a punch back, but they're a really fun unit to use for that reason. And they take up a ton of real estate because they're all in 50s. Super cool unit. Any questions you guys about this list before I jump into it? I know there's some questions at the end that people wanted to hear, but
so the thing I'm seeing that I see some Tyranid lists cut nowadays are like the full Lictor complement, which I know you really, really like, but I know some people would rather buy more firepower or more meat than, invest in Neurolictors or Death Leaper. Can you talk about like how you use those pieces and what they're trying to do?
Fantastic question. The Lictors are incredible. If there's something in this list that you don't have and you have some spare points, adding the 3rd regular Lictor is the next thing to put back in. A Lictor is 55 points for a T6 6 wound body that fights first with 6 attacks at 7-2-2 precision, with Synapse making it 8-2-2 precision. That's ridiculous. If your opponent's plan for taking an objective is charging it with 5 marine bodies, 4 of them will die. And if the plan was charging with like a character and some things, the character will die. It's gross. They do that while moving 8 and advancing and charging in this detachment and having all the Vanguard keywords. So they ingress for free. Just an absurd number of rules for a 55-point model. Absolutely love them as small pieces to do actions, ingressing onto objectives when possible when we're playing, either Tipping Point or Crucible of Battle, or I think the new sweeping ones you can do that too. I haven't played new sweeping very much, but definitely on those 2 deployment types, which are kind of the most common ones these days, it feels like, where you can ingress a strat reserve unit onto a manipulative objective because they don't deep strike for some reason. It's part of why the Parasite's good, by the way, if you're not sure why people are taking her. Lone Op, Ingress, Deep Strike is a great combination of abilities to have. Anyway, so they're excellent for that. The Neurolictors are also fantastic. They always have been. They continue to be. And particularly when you're playing Vanguard and you're battle shocking everyone all the time, having those Neurolictors around, not only for the +1 to wound, but also for the -1 to hitting you, is just excellent. And then also, they're so goddamn durable. 7 wounds, T6, 4-up invuln. Are you stealthy? Are you kidding me? I had, and I'll talk about this in my first game of the GT here. I had Aramon and 5 Rubricae double move out. Doombolt, the Neurolictor, rolled a 1 into a 1, so one took 1 mortal wound. Fired the full complement while I'm standing on the objective. The Neurolictor walked away with 2 wounds. Like, they are so goddamn durable. Was that likely to happen? No, but, it happens from time to time when you have a 4-up invuln and are T5. You will scam people. So they're fantastic. The most important one, though, and I cannot stress this enough, if you are playing Vanguard Onslaught, Death Leaper is mandatory. He is not recommended. He is mandatory. He is the only leadership modifier we have access to that is not contingent on it being Shadows in the Warp. He is 6 inches of always -1 to battle shock checks, or -1 leadership. I don't remember which one it is, but same effect. And he is so essential. He allows you to set up some incredible plays where if someone wants to charge into a wall of you, you can have him standing behind Gene Stealers and be like, what are you going to do about it? Because they come in, they take a shock check at -1, and then they get another -1 to hit from the Broodlord, and suddenly your unit is useless. Check out my game into Lukas, the stat rep we did on that, to see that in person with 20 boys. They turn into wet noodles. When you go to pop Shadows, something that's really important with this army is just how brutal that Shadows turn can be. Flinging him and Synapse simultaneously forward and making people take battle shock checks at -3, it's backbreaking, right? Battle shock is a mechanic that doesn't do anything until you make people take enough checks, add enough modifiers, and then it starts doing a lot. And people hate it. So I absolutely adore him for that reason. And particularly in Vanguard, these guys having that 6-inch reactive move, oh, it's disgusting. 6-inch reactive move into 6-inch lone op is a stupid combination, and the fact that you can also knock a CP off of it via the Winged Hive Tyrant, very silly. Very silly set of rules that you get put in one place here, and I think that they are some fantastic components, Death Leaper especially. Sweet. That's them. Yeah, the Von Ryans are also great. Like I said, they were in the list for a minute there. They're really good at move blocking. They're really good because they're 340s that drop at once, so they can zone out a lot of infiltrating space if you get the defender roll. Moving 10 with advance and charge is even faster. It's awesome. So definitely don't count them out, but don't plan on doing any damage with them because that's not real. Sweet. Let's jump right into this. Mr. Nicholas, you are a Thousand Suns player. Do you mind running us through David Burdett's T-Suns list? This is what I played round 1. If you want to watch this game, this is not on War Games Live. This was on Table 2, which is on the Best in Tabletop stream. Again, I'll try to link it below, but I've got a still here. It's not the most exciting game.
Yeah, let me just find this real quick. Amongst this list of documents. All right. David Burdett is playing a Thousand Suns list titled Cultist MVP, and he is correct. We got Airman on a Disc of Zinch. We got Exalted Sorcerer on Disc of Zinch with the Crystal. We've got Infernal Master with the Vortex. Magnus the Red, Thousand Suns Demon Prince with Lord of Forbidden Lore. This is the Footprints, so that's the Stealth Aura and like the once per game precision to, I believe it's a unit of... I think
Rubrics or Terminators.
That's what it is. Yeah. And then a Foot Sorcerer. We got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 rubrics. One of the squads has all Warp Flamers instead of the Soul Reaper. And then a Rhino, a single Mutalith Vortex Beast, and 20 Cultists.
Very nice. And as you can see here, he used those 20 cultists immediately and pretty actively. He went first here to try to build this big move blocky wall while also going in to get established locust and sabotage. I think this was a little bit of an overcommitment because you saw on that list, he's very, very low on trash. He doesn't have any spawn. He doesn't have any disc goats. He's just got 2x10 cultists, and then ostensibly, Rhino was also a trash beast at the end of the day, and he pushed all of them forwards. And I was very excited about this because once these two squads are dead, he has to put real units on objectives if he wants to score anything, and I'm going to start winnowing away at him. T-Suns are very reliant on their Cabal point count, and the sooner you can start working that number down, the better. So getting them to actually have to commit real units to standing on points instead of just getting to throw their trash around, that's how you start working on those numbers. So we went out and dealt with these with minimal units. We did some shooting between an Exocrine and the Neurotyrant. I think cleared one of them, and then we charged the other one with 5 Stealers up in the top here. He had to expose a little bit to get some damage done. He ended up parking the Lone Op Sorcerer out kind of on the front of this plate here, which was just a little bit of an overextension. And again, Ahriman squad had to run out on the bottom there to go after my Neurolictor. And like I said earlier, they didn't end up being super successful in that. So my Steeler Brick here blitzes out, eats that Sorcerer and his squad. 5 Steelers from the back here run up and eat Ahriman and his squad, and the Broodlord is jammed all the way into his castle here. And then T-Suns, like with Tau and like with Guard, you jam in all your leadership mods, and then you pop Shadows. And when I popped Shadows, basically everybody failed. He had to move Magnus out to try to start working away at some of the stuff that I had, and everything started dying. Magnus died, the Mutalith died. It was just really gross. One really cool play that I did want to mention that I was able to pull off here that I wasn't expecting. It has to do with this Lictor Neurolictor combo up at the top of the table there. He ends up running his Rhino over and then getting guys out and double moving them to be able to go after my Neurolictor, which he does successfully kill. He doesn't kill the Neurolictor. He gets down to 2 wounds, and then he charges it with the Rhino in order to tank shock it. And because there's a squad of Rubrics over here staring at my Lictor, there's nothing that he's going to be able to do to avoid getting killed, but he really wants to get in and kill the Rubrics there. So what I did was I heroic intervene with the regular Lictor into the Rhino that has no one in it, but that charged me. That moves the Lictor all the way up to like the edge of the objective here. He gets his foot on the objective, and he's on the objective, the Rhino's on the objective. The dudes themselves have tried to stay off the objective to avoid giving away O-Force. So it's just me and the Rhino on the objective there. I then pop up 1 CP, or probably 0 CP, frankly, for my Flower back here, for Boo to make him take a Battle Shock check, which he then fails on the Rhino, so the Rhino is OC 0. It's my turn. I now score 5 primary points from that Lictor being the only thing with OC on the objective. The Lictor then falls back behind the wall, which he could not have gotten to earlier, and because he starts in combat, he can't be overwatched on the front end. And then he charges the Rubrikai from behind the wall because Vanguard fall back and charge, and they can't overwatch him at the start because he's behind the wall, and at the end because he's in combat with them. Lictors are really fucking good. You should play them. That's a 55-point model that did all that, and it killed the whole Rubric squad, or maybe like 4 of them, but like, disgusting. 55-point model, fair and balanced, don't you know? Yes, that was awesome. This game was a bit of an execution there. Only having 1 Mutalith Beast makes this a lot more playable to me. Triple Mutalith is really hard for this list to deal with because they're just such big chunks of meat to work my way through. And because they're not generating Cabal points, they're able to, go take up space with actual units that don't gen Cabal, and I don't actually get to chip away at that at all. And they do really good damage. The AoE mortals are annoying. Like, Mutaliths are just really good into Vanguard. 1 I can definitely beat. 3 is going to be a challenge. But fortunately, I ended up getting to dodge Mr. McJurek, who is in the comments with us today, who I think would have pretty summarily executed me with Triple Mutalith. But, it's not what everyone's playing, so that's that. Great game to Dave. He was an awesome opponent. We had a really good time, and he was paying attention to a lot of little things like keeping those rubrics off the objective, which definitely were pretty clutch for him. Final score were 100-22 there, but I think we basically scooped at the end of 3 because he was more or less tabled. That's the thing. If you're looking at Nids and you're like, damn, I really hate being a low damage army that never tables anybody, play Vanguard. We get to table people. It's good fun. Sweet. I don't know which one of you knows Guard better. Wants to talk to me about Barry's list here?
I can do it, I guess.
Yeah, Lukas, tell us about the Guard. Not Barry. This is Bailey. Sorry.
All right, we've got a Guard list. Very cool. Now that they've got the revised Born Soldiers army rule, makes the whole detachment a lot more interactive. So we got a KD command squad, we've got Gaunt's Ghosts, we've got Mr. Leontis himself, we've got 2 Engine Seers that Chad take. I'm guessing there's 2 Rogaldorns in our near future. We've got 10 Kading Shock Troopers, we've got 6 Bulgrin, so just 12 Bulgrin in this list. Looks like, yep. And then we've got a Leman Russ Demolisher with multi-melt responses and a las cannon. We've got another Leman Russ Demolisher with the same. We've got an Exterminator, which is the guy who gives +1 AP, and he has multi-melt responses as well. And he's got 2 Rogaldorn battle tanks, 3 squads of 5 Scions. So, seems like a pretty tank-heavy list. Let's see, that's what 3 Leman Russ, 2 Rogaldorns, 12 Bulgrin, and a little bit of trash.
Yeah, so this is kind of my nightmare matchup. This is essentially similar enough to the Guard list I played at War Masters, one of which beat the snot out of me, one of which I got it down to a 10-10 because it was Ritual. So I'm very concerned about this. And this is one of those times when, in order to win the game on the table, you need to win the game of the mind. Which is to look very, puff out your chest, look very scary and intimidating. Not literally puff out your chest, but, in terms of your units and your placement here, and hope that your opponent doesn't do all the math. Because man, oh man, can this army not kill tanks. Fortunately, we're playing on layout. I don't even know what layout number this is. Do you recognize this, Lukas? Is this 6?
I think that is 6.
Yeah. 6 is cool on, this is Crucible. No, this is clearly Table Quarters. Do we play Table Quarters? Oh, no. This wasn't Table Quarters. This is Hammer and Anvil. Yeah. So Table Quarters. 6 on Table Quarters is nice because it has these weird formations in the corners of a big piece and a small piece that make a little L. And, ooh, that one is... I'm just realizing the one on the other side of the table is definitely not set up correctly because it's supposed to look... Maybe the bottom right one's not set up correctly. Well, one of them's wrong, but I've got this lovely little pocket over here where I can park my my lone ops and be behind the plexiglass, so it's really hard to get to me. And as a result, Bailey kind of just said, I'm not going to bother trying because getting over there is going to be really tricky. It's going to take a while. So a lot of my game plan was about move blocking and keeping him from getting to this expansion objective. And then he lined up all of his Bulgrin in this big line out in front of his army and then put all the tanks behind them, which into a lot of armies makes a ton of sense, right? Especially a melee army. I want to get to those juicy tanks, and the Bulgrin are really hard to get through. But for me, that's like Christmas morning, because the Bulgrin I can kill, the tanks I cannot. So I need to get to the Bulgrin, and then I would like to stand right where the Bulgrin are standing in order to move block the tanks. So that's what we end up doing on repeat here. We move block like there's no tomorrow. We tag a ton of tanks. Something to keep in mind about tagging tanks, particularly something like a guard where they have a lot of blast weapons. In guard, the Lehman Russ demolishers have a demolisher cannon which can shoot blast into combat. Very annoying. But the Rogel Dorns have 2 blast guns that cannot. So if you tag a Rogel Dorn, all it's shooting into combat with is the Multi-Meltas and the Stubber, or whatever it is. Maybe a coaxial auto cannon. So what you want to do is you want to tag the Dorns while move blocking with that tag the Russ, so that he only gets to shoot you with one or the other. Either the Dorns shoot into combat with not the blast guns, or the Dorns fall back and the Russ gets to shoot into you with everything. And even better if you can battle shock the Dorn so it doesn't want to fall back anyway, because it doesn't want to take a desperate escape check that it can't reroll and die. Which never happened here. He never fell back. Bailey's a smart guy. Knows what he's doing. So it's a lot of that. So because that we're able to hold these 3 objectives for quite a long time, I get 13, 13, 13 on primary for turns 2, 3, and 4. This is me going first. And then I drop down to an 8. Just holding the back 2 with just more and more move blocks. The entire game is like that. Like I said, you can watch it on YouTube if at Best Tabletop on YouTube if you want to see some more of the details, but it's basically just a bunch of move blocking. As a guard player, if you have this much armor in your list, you really want to interrogate, does my opponent have a credible way to kill it? And if they don't, deploy on the line and push as hard as you can. I see guard players pussyfooting around all the time. You have indestructible OC5 boxes. Put them places. I understand that protecting your firepower is valuable, but it's really easy to delay the game if you sit back. Whereas when you push forward, it's like there's not a lot of armies that can punish a guard overextension, right? Like, who does that? Like Eldar.
Space Wolves.
Space Wolves. Ooh, spicy. Things to come. So, like, it's... Yeah. In this case, I think that Bailey definitely had the wrong tact here and was significantly too cautious. If he just full sends on the line, there's really not a ton that I can do about it. But with as much speed, eat, and damage as I have, I understand and the impulse to sit back a little bit further. So, probably not the right call for him, but at the end of the day, he's playing a very move-blockable army, so with me going first here, he's going to have a little bit of trouble regardless of how he plays this around, but from a damage perspective, he's going to table me, and I'm not going to do squat to him, other than killing his Bulgrin at the end of the day. So, great game to Bailey. That game finishes up, the top's cut off, 70, 80 to 92 to 57, something like that. Something in the, 17-3 kind of range, 16-4. Great game. Moving on into AdMech. This is the semifinals. Have either of you ever heard of AdMech? Nick, do you want to try to brave the Matt Evans AdMech list that he brought here?
I don't know shit about AdMech.
Who does, man? Do you? Lucas does. Okay, sure.
I played against it one time in preparation for WTC. That means I'm an expert.
Evidently, bro. How would you break down Matt Evans' AdMech list, which he is bringing the Champs Cup, so it's worth us all studying up on while we're here.
Ooh. All right, so we got an AdMech list here. It is Skitarii Hunter cohort. Wow. So the whole army has stealth. That's cool. We've got 3 marshals. One's a clandestine infiltrator, so he has infiltrate and scout 6. One has Battlesphere uplink, so they fire and fade, and one is the Cantic Thrallnet, so we can choose one unit within whatever at the
12.
Start of the command phase to
battle
the
round.
start of the battle round to get. Shut the fuck up if you want me to read the list, for God's sake. To get both benefits of the funny ability. We got 1, 2, 3 squads of Vanguard, 10-mans. We've got 1, 2 squads of Skystalkers. So these are the fire and fade goofballs with the flechette guns. They're the first of the little funny bat units.
What?
2 squads of 5 of those. And then he's got 10 sterilizers, which are the flamer boyos. And then
he did not have those. Were those just in his list and he forgot? No, I think he has the wrong list here. Though he replaced those with infiltrators.
All right. And then he's got, let's see, 9 chickens, 6 with las cannon, 3 with autocannon. He's got 9 dragoons, all with taser lances, and that's the list. Much chicken, such wow.
Yeah, so he's got the full 18. Something to know about 18 chickens is that they really get screwed over by new Bring It Down. So for those of y'all who don't keep track of how vehicle units work, Bring It Down is now per unit, not per model. But when you destroy the unit, if it is it more than 10 is the first cutoff? No, it's just whatever it is. It's 2 points. If it's more than 15, it's 3. And if it's more than 20, it's 4. Is that right? No, it's more than that. 2, 4. Oh, it's 2, 4, 6. So it's 2 points unless it's more than 15, in which case it's 4 points, unless it's more than 20, in which case it's 6 points. Dragoons and all the chickens are 7 wound models. So a unit of 3 chickens is 21 wounds, which means that unit is 6 points of Bring It Down. And he has 6 of them. So if you have a second fix that you can take, that is 36 points available to you. I don't really have a second one that I can take. My army is ludicrously good at tactical. And also, the other reason to not is because Bring It Down is not capped as a tactical either. So if you draw it on the right turn, you can score, theoretically, 36 points of secondary in a turn.
Bruh.
That's a thing that could happen. Obviously, that doesn't happen. But what ends up happening here works out in my favor with that in mind. So, once again, I'm bad at killing armor. Fortunately, this is armor of T7, not T12. So it's a lot easier to deal with. But it's still not really the kind of targets that I want to go after. Other than, like, the warriors will chew through them, especially once they're battle shocked. But, like, I do not have the... I can't play a trade war into this. I need to do something a little bit wackier. This game was crazy. This is on War Games Live. This is semifinals. I think it's all labeled as the finals is the VOD, but it's the semifinals and the finals put together. This game was crazy. Oh my gosh. I am battle shocking like it is going out of style. I am blitzing around different places and trying to deal with nonsense. He's got a bunch of Vanguard up front. I again kill that trash early. To really limit his activation count here, because Matt only has as those 9 units of chickens, and then he's got all this little bitty Italy stuff. But both the infiltrator units and 2 of the Vanguard, and 1 of the Vanguard units started super forward deployed. So we went out and we killed him. Get rid of that stuff, make him start doing actions with chickens. And then he's got his last squad on his home field. Matt makes a massive mistake and ends up not quite screening out his backfield with that unit. So I'm able to drop in there, first with a Lictor who rapid ingresses back there for free and does so outside of 12 so he can't be shot at. And then second, I just dropped in my squad of Raveners after he's battle shocked so he can't overwatch me. And I say, all right, cool, well, you're about to be in combat with a Lictor. So I'm going to go you won't be able to do anything to me next turn because all his chickens are pretty far forward at this point. But also, like, what if I just raw dog a 9? And I raw dogged a 9. So the Lictor runs in, kills the character, gets me a CP. The Raveners fight. Raveners are insane. Kill the whole unit. And I've taken his home field back, which is this huge primary swing because he is really pushing me off of objectives. And on my Shadow's turn, he passed only 2 battle shock checks, which happened to be 2 units on 2 separate objectives. The only 2 objectives he was on. I was like, all right. Cool, dude. Admech are a lead 7 army, so battle shocks and lead mods are really huge. Tons of fun back and forth on this, just trying to cut through stuff. I've reactive moved like 2 or 3 times over the course of this game. The Steelers end up going to work. The Warriors go in and go to work and get stuff done. Really love the output out of all of my units here. And then Matt decides to secret mission because I'm way ahead on primary because, again, I've been just battle shocking him off of it so much. And also just able to position stuff nicely. But he's got this massive end game, right? Because he's got a bunch of chickens and I'm getting tabled. So he goes for it. And obviously he's going for Unbroken Wall. There's a moment where I realized that he could go for War of Attrition. I have a unit of gargoyles. So, like, if I decide that he's going for War of Attrition, it's stupidly easy for me to stop. But I really need those gargoyles to go do some nonsense. So I decided to bet the whole game on him not having taken War of Attrition. He didn't, because he's not crazy, but, like, man, that would have been a 5,000 IQ play. I had to throw out my gargoyles. But, yeah, so he's taking Unbroken Wall. And the very end of the game, this is a fantastic moment to watch. Because, like in the game against Steve with the Tidewall, where everyone's like, all right, well, Tyler loses. And I'm like, hold up just a second. Ba-da-da-da-da. And I win. And that was crazy. Once again... And everyone's like, all right, well, top up of, Matt Evans is going second. That's Tyler's turn 4. He couldn't kill enough things to keep Matt from holding those 3 midfield objectives, right? He's just going to go do it now. And Matt's like, all right, cool. So we're good here? And I'm like, man, just play your turn. And he's like, what the hell do you have up your sleeve? And I'm like, you know exactly what I have up my sleeve. Matt Evans, for the record, is a Tyranids main. He knows all my rules just as well as I do. I just wasn't thinking that far ahead because what I have left in the tank, the only tool left at my disposal is that I can, for 1 CP, or 0 CP, because my Hive Tyrant's on the table, in his fight phase, make any unit on the table take a Battle Shock check. And, in particular, I've still got Death Leaper alive, because Death Leaper is really important. And he runs over, and I'm like, all right, cool, I've got 2 CP and my freebie. I reactive move Deathy, move him behind the wall so he can't be seen or realistically charged, but still within 6 of the only unit that he can get on the objective. And all right, let's see what we can do. And the entire game comes down to a Leadership 8 Battle Shock check on this unit of the Vanguard. And he rolls a 7. Death Leaper single-handedly wins the game. And for those of y'all saying, oh, there's a Marshal in the squad, he can unbattle shock them. He can unbattle shock them at the start of any phase. It is the fight phase bottom 5. Checkmate. This game was awesome. It was a ton of fun. Evans is a great player and a fantastic opponent. I highly recommend you check out this game. It was super cool. Really enjoyable. Sorry, I missed the point where I did bring it down on a turn when I finished 2 chicken units, so I scored 12 points of secondary in a single fell swoop. Like, oh, it was wonderful. Awesome game. Just an awesome game. Sweet.
Big hype, dude.
Thanks, man. This was a ton of fun. If you want to see what Vanguard is capable of, like, I really tried to push the limits here. And then over here, we got the finals into Green Tide. Obviously, I'm going to have Lukas read through this list on behalf of our good friend of the show, Noah Badome, who at least was in here a minute ago. Love you, Noah. He's made it all the way here with Green Tide. He beat our boy Alex Pena, who's on our Champs Cup team on Sisters in the semifinals to make it. So he definitely knows what he's doing. What do you think about this list, Lukas?
All right. Let's check out this Green Tide list entitled Group Swim. The fuck? I don't get that. He has 15 points left. Oh god, please tell me he bought the enhancement. Okay, he did. Good. Okay. He's got 2 Pain Boys. He's got 1, 2 War Bosses. Interesting. One of the War Bosses is Brutal but Cunning. Interesting. What the fuck, Noah? All right. Okay, let me just read this shit. We got a War Boss with Brutal but Cunning, that's CP generation. We got a War Boss with Ferocious Show Off, that's extra strength. We've got a Weird Boy with Raucous Warcaller, that's count your unit as having 10 or more models at all times. Okay, interesting. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squads of 20 boys. So he's got 2 tank bricks and then a jump squad and then 3 naked idiot squads. Interesting.
That is correct.
Truck. We've got 10 Burnas, 10 Gretchen, 10 Commandos. The ever useless Commandos. I don't know why Noah likes these. He's always gooning about them. We've got 1, 2, 3 squads of Storm Boys.
So tell me what you really think, Lucas.
Well, I mean, it's Green Tide, so it's kind of dog shit. But I mean, all things considered, it's not what I would play in Green Tide, but it is a pretty solid list. The Burners are nice.
Absolutely.
I love me some Burners. As much as I belittle the Commandos, they do a thing very well. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. It's very unique.
Yeah, absolutely. Noah was very insistent in defending several of his decisions here, where I was like, "This isn't how Lucas does it," and he was like, "Well, Lucas doesn't know." And fair enough, man.
You're right, man.
Lucas isn't making it to the finals of Charity Hammer. Lucas isn't even playing Green Tide right now because he's a coward.
That's objectively true.
So yeah, as you can see, quite a number of models on the table here. This game was definitely happening on a clock. Unfortunately for Noah, Lucas, as a Green Tide player, how would you describe in the best of times the Green Tide Vanguard Nids matchup?
Flippy?
That seems optimistic.
Do I pass the terrifying Leadership 7 morale checks? Leadership 8 on like 4 of the squads? Or do I instantly lose with no counterplay?
Yeah.
Also, so that's kind of a 7-inch charge on the unit that just reacted moved away from me, or do I lose the game immediately? I love reactive moves.
Yeah, they're great. So that is to say that Vanguard has all the tools to disassemble Green Tide. And if you don't like watching really close competitive games, but would instead like to watch an absolute massacre where the Tyranids win by a lot of points, check this game out. Some absolutely just disgusting things happen here. He has no guns that threaten my exocrines, so they're both deployed here with a line of sight down this bead, and they both got to shoot without moving the entire game. They both shot the same squad as each other, like not it was the same squad every turn. But every turn, the two of them would pick a squad and they would both shoot it every turn with D6 plus 7 shots. Like, just ludicrous output here. If for those of y'all listening, Lucas looks like he's making noises of pain. But yes, they're great for that. This combo over here is like what I was saying. Deathy, Broodlord, Stealers, Flyrant. Those things move as a package, and they are disgusting. You slam into the unit. I force a Battle Shock check at -1 from Deathy, and if you fail that, you'll be -1 to hit. The Broodlord makes you -1 to hit, so as an Orc player with +1 from your boys go from hitting on 2s to 3s to 4s. And then the Hive Tyrant on a 2-up makes you -1 attack. So if it's not the Wa turn, you're what? 2 attacks a boy?
Fuck you.
2 attacks a boy, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. I've got a 5-up save and 2 wounds. Have fun. And then I'm going to hit you back with 4 attacks a Gene Stealer at 5-2-1. Hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounding on 3s, wounding on 2s because you're battle shocked and there's a Neurolictor. Rerolling 1s if you're on an objective dev. It just doesn't go well. Noah and I play a bit of a slightly cagey dance before things get real, spit swap and make out kind of situation. There's a little bit of careful play back and forth. And then, so Lucas, when we played this game, we had me going first, right? Which was very annoying, obviously, as a Green Tide player because you want to be able to dictate the Wa. That being said, there's a massive disadvantage as the Green Tide player going first in this particular matchup. Do you see it?
What is that? No.
That I get to pop shadows on your Wa turn after you call the Wa.
Okay.
So if you tell me you're about to full commit your army, great, everyone is battle shocked. You commit, your commitment is weakened by the shadows, and then now that you've overcommitted, my clapback is disgusting. And Noah was like, yeah, man, full send, brother. This was brutalizing. I had my warrior squads go through and just pick up boy squad after boy squad after boy squad. Lictors were getting in there and sniping at these characters before they had to get there, right? Pain boys are really easy to kill, right? When you're playing against Green Tide, precisioning out a war boss is very difficult. Precisioning out a pain boy is comically easy. They're 3 wounds. They only have the 5-up emblem from the squad and the 5-up feel no pain from themselves. So you basically need to put 6 damage worth of wounds onto their fragile T5 bodies. Like, it's not hard. And once they go away, the squads, become like paper and disappear. So not a super exciting... Sorry?
No, I was just going to maul about Green Tide, so go ahead. It's better that you cut me off.
Yeah, for sure. That's part of the thing. This is the great thing about Deathy. everyone gets so annoyed as a Nids player the first time they put Deathy on the table because they're like, he's 30 feet tall. Why can't I hide him behind a wall? That's the best thing about him. Because he's 30 feet tall, he can always see. You slam him on the terrain piece so that he can see out of it. And then he's so tall he can see over anything, and those characters cannot hide from his precision because he's so damn tall he can see them with the tip of his tippy-tip claw. So just another reason to love Deathleaper. Nicely played by Noah. Unfortunately, just a poor matchup for him, and also one that I know really well because I've played into Green Tide a lot of times, including with this list, and he was not quite as familiar. So excellent tournament overall. Very excited to come home with the Fat W there. Significantly more excited with the money that we raised over the course of that weekend. We did raise our $40,000 going directly into the pockets of Child's Play to purchase toys and games and video games for children in hospitals with critical illnesses and in domestic abuse shelters. So love that. Awesome event. Thank you for putting this on, Colin. It's always an absolute pleasure. Super looking forward to the next time there. I don't know if I'll be here for the next one or if I'll still be in Spain, but tons of fun. Highly recommend tuning in to these all the time. And if you're a little bit bummed that you missed it and you didn't get your donations in, while there will not be any more drawings happening, Child's Play is still obviously accepting money, and I believe you can still donate through the Tiltify for Charity Hammer. If that's something you're interested in making a contribution for, we would really appreciate that. All right. I've been talking for way too long, so let's jump into Dicing Death 2, which is the tournament that Lukas was at last week. Funnily enough, also streamed by Wargames Live. Actually, not really a coincidence. He just kind of drove because they were close together. I was unfortunately back here in California, was not able to make it to this one. Scare quotes on close together. If you're in the UK, it's an unimaginable distance that would take a week's journey. I had to drive
so far down to Bristol the other day. Shut up!
Oh, man. UK folk. All right, let's get into this event. Nicholas Olsen-Johnson, why don't you break down some of the details from Dicing Death, put on by our boy, John Ananya. Absolutely love that man. He is quickly becoming one of the beating hearts of the Portland 40K scene with his terrain and his events. So super proud to be showcasing this on the show. Let's hear the details from Mr. Olsen-Johnson.
Yeah, so John ran this event, I believe at the Lloyd Center this year, or it was in a different, like, I don't know what to call it, venue there, different room there. I wasn't there, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Lucas, after we go over the details here. But looking at the stream over the weekend, it looked like a lot more welcoming than the previous room, which I know, like, light was a big issue in that room. So this tournament, Dicing Death 2, was a 58-person, 6-round event, which is pretty cool. 6-round events are pretty rare, and it's a lot nicer to have one in our own backyard, because then you can, turn around, drive the 30 minutes home. It was a Pariah Nexus event using custom missions. I don't think a single one of the missions were recommended GW missions, but I know John spent a lot of time and thought into curating this mission pack to try to make it as balanced as possible. He was playing with GW terrain layouts as well, with his own terrain that I know he prints. And the pairings were determined on random pairings within win brackets and battle point placings, which is pretty standard for singles tournaments these days.
Sweet. Any further thoughts on the venue and the tournament as a whole, Lucas?
Yeah, it was a pretty cool event. We've talked about the Lloyd Center before, so I don't want to harp on too much about that. Basically, it's a decrepit ass mall in Portland, which sounds really depressing, but it does have a certain charm to it, like getting together with all the boys and like just hanging out in this really haggard mall in our own little like corner of nerd heaven. It's pretty cool, and definitely the upstairs, like you said, is a little bit more welcoming. We've done events there. There's the downstairs venues that we did for the first Rose Hammer and the first Dicing Death, I believe, which were the H&M. They abandoned H&M and they abandoned Victoria's Secret, which were really hilarious. And then this one, I don't know what store used to be here, but it's bigger, so you can fit all the 60 tables or however many. We could easily fit another 20, 30 people in there, I would say. And they can all fit in the one room, and it's just much better lit. I don't know if it's because it's on the second story and supposed to the first. I don't know the reason why. That's probably is it actually. But yeah, there's just a lot more light in there, and there's a lot more room as well, so you don't feel as boxed in. Yeah, it's a cool venue. I like what John is doing as a TO with his terrain and with his custom missions, getting feedback from the community and like putting in what people want to see each time, which is really cool. The sixth round was a little bit interesting. Well, I'll talk about my thoughts on that when we get there. But yeah, it's definitely very unique for the Northwest as well. We don't usually have enough players to get to 6 rounds. Any other thoughts, guys, or should we go into my list?
Very cool. Yeah, let's jump right into it. Sorry, I got a little bit lost there on my computer. Cool. So let's hear about your famous orcs / chaos knights / what?
I'm branching out, baby. We got Wolf Jail. So having seen the Space Wolf Stormlance archetype played by lots of people in the Northwest, like since this time last year, honestly, and then again getting wrecked by it at WTC this year, really made me consider trying out the list myself. And more importantly, because I needed a army to slot in for a Champs Cup, I borrowed the Prince of the illustrious Colby Hopkins to play down in Texas, because we thought it fit very well into our comp. So this was kind of like a practice event for me, going and seeing what matchups were like and how the army felt playing on GW terrain, because that is by far my least practiced terrain. Since WTC has been happening. I guess FLG I haven't played a ton on, but whatever. Yeah, so this is my Wolf Jail list. It's basically the Poland list, but I swap a couple units around for a Vindicator. So I've got 3 components to the list. There's the meat component, the trading component, and then the scoring component. So the meat component of the list is 2 Vindicators and 3 squads of 6 Thunderwolf Cavalry. Those 3 squads of Thunderwolf Cavalry are joined by, each squad is joined by a battle leader on Thunderwolf. So the battle leader on Thunderwolf gives them lethal hits always, and he also gives them once per game blood surge after they get shot, which is really powerful. By far the more powerful of the 2 is lethal hits, just because the army is all low strength. And when you combine it with Logan Grimnar, who's also in the list, he can give the full army reroll to hit on a turn. It really incentivizes going wide. And when you're going wide, you have a lot of dice you're throwing with a lot of rerolls, and all of it is lethal hits. So that's really strong. That's like kind of the core of the army. In addition to a Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf, he's got an enhancement, Fury of the Storm. Fury of the Storm is one of the Weisgar's enhancements. It gives +1 strength and AP, +2 AP and strength on the charge. So he gets up to, I got all my guys kitted out with that Power Fist, just because that's what Colby has modeled. His fist goes up to strength 10, AP 4, damage 3 on the charge, which is disgusting, especially when you combine it with lethal hits. This dude regularly can have the potential to like kill a war dog by himself. So like with no dice even rolled, they don't even get a save. So he's great. He joins the meat component of the list. There's the trading component of the list, which I have 2 squads of 5 assault intercessors and 2 squads of 5 wolfen. In my opinion, this is the weakest part of my list right now. I would love to have an extra squad of Assaultants or Wolfen to trade with. They're great because they have advance and charge in this detachment. They kind of go out there and answer little trash units, enemy Space Marine Scouts, Sister Battle Dominions. T-Sons can throw their rubrics or their, disco, not rubrics, their cultists or their discoats forward. You're picking up those kind of units with the kind of accentuated damage of Assault Intercessors with Charge Mortals and reroll to hit from Oath, or Wolfen with reroll to hit from Oath. They can definitely go in and, clear enemy screens very efficiently. So that's the trading component. And then the scoring component is a couple different units here. Just all singletons. We've got 1 squad of 5 infiltrators. We've got 1 squad of 5 scouts. We've got a lone op lieutenant, and we've got Logan Grimnar. So you might be surprised to hear Logan Grimnar in there, but really, because he can use his ability from Deep Strike, he's just there to do that once per game and then land on my home objective, or, to do containment or something like that on turn 2 or 3. He just does 1 action and then screens for the rest of the game. Lone Op Lieutenant, very much the same. Because of the low strength characteristic of the army, the reroll once to wound on a key objective is really important as well. So that's a good ability of his. And then we've got the squad of infiltrators and squad of scouts that they need no explanation, right? They're just good Space Marine units. So I slotted them in to help me score some tactical cards. So yeah, that's the list and how a little insight into how I think about it.
Sweet. I know there's been a lot of evolutions of this list, particularly I think around the shooting component is the part that seems to change the most pretty wildly. It was Inceptors for a while, it was Lancers for a while. It was a single Vindicator for them, it's double Vindicator for you. How do you feel about Vindicators in particular? Why that shooting platform? Obviously, it's not crazy to say that we need some shooting in a list, but why Vindicators and why 2 of them?
I really like the Vindicators because they combo really well with the Space Wolf go turn, right? They have this critical go in turn where Grimnar calls the Wolf Wah, and all 3 squads of cavalry try to charge with the charge reroll and hit rerolls, and then maybe try to throw in a squad of Wolf in, or a squad of Assault Intercessors as well, and you're hitting your opponent with 4 or 5 units all at once. The Vindicators combo with that very well because your opponent isn't going to have guns to shoot at the Vindicators on that go turn, right? They're going to be busy dealing with all the cavalry. The cavalry aren't something you can ignore because they fall back and charge. And while their AP is low, they still rack up enough damage on stuff, even into high armor save things or with AOC, that they can't be ignored. So your opponent kind of has to ignore the Vindicators, and they can combo shoot one target with Oath of Moment. Your cavalry and your Wolfen don't need Oath of Moment on the go turn because of Logan Grimnar's Wolf Wah ability. So the Vindicators, they're classically known as casino cannons, right? Because they have a random number of shots and random damage. You remove one of those random points when you factor in Oath of Moment, because 7 shots hitting on 3s might only get you 4 hits, but hitting on 3s or rolling will get you 6 hits pretty reliably. So you kind of move them around in concert with each other, shooting at targets with Oath of Moment every single turn. And then eventually, once your kind of momentum is petered out, your opponent's kind of like starting to push back and get their foot back into the game, they all of a sudden have to deal with 2 full health Vindicators, sitting in cover in the midfield, holding objectives, just bombarding them. So I liked that quite a bit. The resilience of the Vindicator is unique. It's much tougher than Inceptors. It's much tougher than Lancers. And I'm not saying either of those choices are wrong. They both are good for different reasons, especially in like the Marine meta we're in right now. The Plasma Inceptors can actually be really good at clearing out enemy power armor. But man, the Vindicators they're good into holes. They're good into elite infantry. They're very tough. They have 3 OC, which beats out a lot of like transports and things like that. So they're just fantastic, man. And I like them. Why I went with 2 instead of 1 was I'm practicing for teams. So without going too much into our game plan for next week, I wanted to be able to kind of push differentials a little bit more. And I feel like giving up 2 trash trading units for 1 more meat damage dealer is kind of furthers that goal. So that's why I went with 2 instead of the other units of Marines.
Makes sense to me. Let's get right into how it went. Starting off round 1, we got Ritual Crucible of Battle Swift Action. Looks like you were playing up against Shield Host Custodes. Haven't seen these in a minute. Nick, you want to break down the Custodes list?
Yeah, let's play with Jacob, right? Yeah, good friend Jacob. He was playing 3 Blade Champions. You know him, you love him. He likes to advance and charge. We got 3x4 Wardens for those Blade Champions to lead. We got squad of 4 Prosecutors. That's just the Bolter Sisters. 3 squads of 3 Venatari because they, come screaming down from the heavens with their free rapid ingress. Calidus Assassin and big old Canis Rex, who's been sneaking his way into a lot of Imperial lists.
Yeah, so this is an interesting game, kind of a weird one. The kind of John's philosophy going into this, John RTO, was that we should play the weirder missions up front as kind of like a, let's see if you can handle this curveball, let's see if you can handle this curveball, and then maybe next time, if they're not so much fun, we can cut them out of the packet. And then later on in the event, which is kind of backward from how we've usually done it in the PNW, you'll play round 4, 5, and 6, you'll play like Crucible Take and Hold, you'll play Scorched Earth, Search and Destroy. You'll play very bare bones, basic missions that really test your fundamentals. So, this round being Ritual was pretty wonky, especially with this list. I always say that Space Wolves struggle the most with quality 2 damage melee, and good God, Shield Host has tons of that. Critical 5s exploding on the entire army the whole game is absolutely disgusting, especially for dealing with T6, his strength 7 lance dealing with T6, 4 wound dudes, just kind of mowing through them. So I was scared for sure. Canis Rex also has some quality damage 4 firepower that he can use to kill wolves. So I knew I needed to simplify the board state right away. And put my Wolf Lord squad in rapid ingress, and then on turn 1, bullet them onto the board, sneaking around a wall and assassinating Canis Rex immediately on the bottom of 1. I think Jacob ended up going first, so he kind of did not move forward very much. I immediately ingressed and tackled, full-on tackled Canis Rex with that squad. So it was great to get rid of his 1 shooting piece, which gave me kind of control over the rest of the game with my Vindicators. They kind of slowly made their way from angle to angle, destroying a squad of Custodians. This game really, round 1 immediately showed me the power of having shooting, such a quality shooting pieces in like a melee rush list. You play the game in more than one phase, right? So like if you look at a squad of Wardens with 2 Vindicators and go, are you going to pop your Feel No Pain? If no, I'm going to destroy you. If yes, then I'll destroy you in the fight phase, right? Like there's no winning that battle for them unless they want to like commit all the squads at once. And that's probably what Jacob should have done. But that is a scary proposition to run out in front of a whole gun line of wolves and, the Vindicator guns and the wolves all charging in. Would have been very nasty. So just kind of methodically working my way through shooting the Venatari, charging the Wardens. And as durable as Wardens are, once they pop their Feel No Pain, the -1 to wound doesn't really affect the Space Wolves, the Thunderwolf Cavalry at all. So you can just make them take 1,000,000 3-ups and they'll die. So that's kind of how this game went, and edged out a reasonable sized victory. It was not a blowout by any means, but I felt pretty good about this one. It showed me the power of the Vindicators. And yeah, I mean, his units were tearing me apart, man. Like Remnant Venatari squad, like 2 dudes or, a Blade Champ and 2 Wardens would come in and like basically clear out a Thunderwolf squad. I'm like, good God, man, these guys are terrifying. So lots of damage from the Custodes, but I just had more control over the board.
Yeah, man. Shield Host, like, people shit on Custodians all the time right now because they're not necessarily in the best place from a codex perspective. That is not because they lack damage. These boys have output.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and especially on denser terrains, I can really see why it's hard to push this army, right? Because like, unless your units are completely disposable, you're going to get utterly slammed by these units of Custodians. So it seems like a hard army to push. It seems like a great blunter, honestly. Very Death Guard-esque, but no shooting, more melee.
Definitely. Sweet. Well, nice job on round 1. Let's move on over to round 2. Looks like we're going to continue playing the wacky missions here. We've got Burden of Trust, Tipping Point, Hidden Supplies. I think Hidden Supplies makes Burden of Trust a lot closer to reasonable. It seems like a lot of the missions that are kind of bad get better with Hidden Supplies. And you're playing up against World Leaders this time. Nick, I know you played some World Leaders in your day. Why don't you break us down this list with a cool twist at the end?
There we go. Sorry. A little bit of lag there. All right. What do we got here? We got a very cool World Leaders list here, played by Brad. We got Angron, always present. We got a Juggerlord with a Favorite of Corn. That's the once per game reroll enhancement, correct? Reroll your blessings. A Master of Executions with a Berserker Glaive. 2 squads of 10 Jackals. 1 squad of 10 Corn Berserkers for the Mo to lead. 2 squads of 3 8-bound. 1 big squad of 6 Exalted 8-bound. 1 little squad of 2 Spawn. And then we got 2 World Eater Forge Fiends and a Rhino. Unfortunately, the Forge Fiend, not the correct damage number for the Thunderwolf. So how'd this go?
Correct. Yeah, so this was an interesting game. Going from Custodes, the quality 2 damage melee army, to World Leaders, the quality 2 damage melee army, back to back really had me scared. But it's been a while since I played against World Leaders and had the speed to actually, in a melee mirror, initiate on them rather than the other way around. Especially with my shooting, I was really able to control where Brad stood on the board. This was played on GW layout 1. So this is the one with the 2 L's kind of in the middle of the board. And because we were playing tipping point, they were just entirely facing our DZ. So we had a good hole for Angron, but like there wasn't really anywhere else good to stage the 8-bound. So I was really able to keep them far back and make him choose between, do you want to take the speed buffs and come in and fight me? And you won't have any offensive buffs, or, you know, you'll still have your hooks from Angron, but you won't have like sustained or anything like that. Or do you want to sit there and let my 5 scouts and my 5 infiltrators and my Logan Grimnar score me a bunch of primary points? And there was a couple awkward moments where, you know, he would come in and trade with Jackals, and that was much better for him, or trade with normal 8-bound because they have scout natively. So those all went pretty well for him. But once those units were dead, it was like, okay, time to commit Angron, time to commit this 6 Exalted, and you just blow them up. Even with -1 damage in melee, the combination of Vindicators, pick a no target, blast that unit, finish it off with a Thunderwolf squad was just too much for him to handle. The Forge Fiends also, I think I really like Forge Fiends. Most World Leader players don't, and I mean, I'm not a World Leader player, so maybe I'm certain they know better than me. But I think they add a nice little dynamic to the army. Even just like one of them can be nice for controlling a lane. But unfortunately, they're just dead weight into Space Wolves. I don't really care about AP3. I don't really care about 3 damage. Strength 10 is like such a meh number into me. I guess the best it's doing is like picking up 5 Space Marines, but it doesn't even always reliably do that. So they were, and they're also huge liabilities because their guns are blast. As soon as like I have them tagged, they can't get outside of 9 inches. So I'm always reactive moving when they fall back, and I can chase them down. It's just, all of it is bad. So I think, you know, a more standard World Leader list, like the 1975 list, might pose more of a hassle for me. But I was surprised how well my army did into this. The reactive move also gives them fits because you can set up all sorts of scenarios, you know. The classic, you know, the World Leaders can go so fast they can get an auto, like a 6-inch charge on me without rolling any dice because they auto advance 6 and +2 move. Okay, but that puts them within 9, so then I can just reactive move away and then make them very sad. So like their somewhat reliable charge plan is all of a sudden like completely out the window on the most important unit. So yeah, pretty interesting game. Like you said, I think that Hidden Supplies makes Burden of Trust a lot more playable. It's fun to have a lot more objectives to play on. I just like Hidden Supplies in general. But and on Tipping Point as well, there's like on any of the missions where you have an expansion that's kind of very close to your deployment zone, I like Burden of Trust because it's easier to score the 4 primary automatically, and then your like default score is 2 for guarding your home objective, 4 for protecting your expansion. And like 6 as a relatively steady primary number is pretty reasonable. Plus any more you're able to get by going out and fighting your opponent. So I like this mission, honestly. So yeah, I would not be sad to see it again in a future packet.
Very nice. What table did you guys play this on?
Like GW layout?
Yeah.
1.
Gotcha. And on 1 on Tipping Point, I guess you roll off for which way it breaks, or did John tell you which way it breaks?
Yes. So that is the one kind of goofy part, is because there's the now Hidden Supplies isn't random. It's you roll off and the winner determines which direction it moves. That's if so on deployment types where there's no there aren't 2 corners of the battlefield that are in no man's land. Then you have to roll off and the winner determines which direction the objective in the middle splits toward.
So that's what y'all ended up doing?
Yeah, I won the roll off and put the objectives in the middle of the open rather than in the middle of the L. Because nice. I have 22 cavalry models in my army. Wow, crazy.
Makes sense to me. Cool. I think that they should really make Burden of Trust go top left, bottom right. Because it's clearly Diet Crucible. But like, I don't know. I also just think that roll off is stupid in general, and it should just be preset. But we'll move on.
Hidden Supplies?
Yeah, Hidden Supplies. Sorry, oh, did I say Burden of Trust? Yeah, Hidden Supplies on Tipping Point. It should just go top left, bottom right, because that's how Tipping Point should work. But anyway, all right, round through, moving in to Linchpin, Hammer and Anvil, Stalwarts. This is a crazy mission. Like, love Linchpin. Stalwarts is the Chaos Knight mission, but for everyone else, it's fine. But Hammer and Anvil Linchpin, I have not played this yet. This seems very low scoring to me. I'm curious to hear about how this ends up shaking out.
What the hell did I play in this round?
Imperial
that's right.
Guard. Nick, you want to break down the guard list for us? It's a crazy list.
All right, yeah. When I was putting this list in, I was like, oh wait, there's more. So this list has a Deathcore Marshal with the Death Mask of Alanius. It's got a platoon command squad, regimental engine seer. It's got a demo tank commander who I know had an enhancement. I don't know why it's not showing up there anymore. I think it was
I
like
deleted it.
the tactical genius or whatever it was. I don't know. Something that made him really smart. We got Ursula Creed as well, and then we're done with the characters. And now we have the real heroes. 2 squads of 10 catechins, 1 squad of 20 Death Corps of Krieg, 5 squads of 10 infantry, 2 chimeras, 3 Bulgrin, just running around, a Leman Russ Executioner, a big squad of 6 Ogren, and then 2 Rogel Dorns.
So yeah, I can't really comment too much on Linchpin, Hammer, and Anvil because I had a very skewed game, as you can see by the scorecard. I'll only take a second to talk about this game because it was not the most interesting, although Scooter did take it like a champ. The story of this game was, we had all sorts of interactions, such as the glorious 2 squads of guardsmen walk toward the middle objective on turn 1. My Wolflord squad 1 CP auto advanced 9s automatically charges them and is basically on his deployment line on the bottom of 1. Kills the first unit, tags the second unit of guardsmen. That unit of guardsmen falls back, has to be within 9, even within move. I reactive move 6. He shoots me with his first Rogel Dorn. 1 CP -1 to hit and wound. He kills 1 Thunderwolf. I blood surge into the squad of infantry that fell back. Kill them. Consolidate into the next squad. Now I'm starting my turn 2, and I'm inside his deployment zone, and I go run in and charge a Leman Russ that's on his back table edge on the bottom of 2. So all sorts of things like that, where like the guard just kind of can't get away from what I'm trying to do. And I think that maybe a list with more Bulgrin might have had some more teeth, actually getting me stopped up. T6 is a big breakpoint. -1 damage is huge. And the 4-pin one is good at bouncing my Vindicators. So I can definitely work my way through Bulgrin, but it might take some time and give him a little more breathing space to kind of get more screening layers in place and keep his tanks protected. But ultimately, this is like a very spaceful favored matchup just because of my speed. All of their guns are blast, so as soon as the tanks are tagged, it's Ogre. And yeah, it's very volatile and sketchy, and Scooter gave me way too many openings for me to just exploit and run roughshod through his deployment zone. So yeah, I think this mission plus deployment again, like I said, can't comment too much on it because I played a very skewed game, but I think it can produce some skewed results where if someone is kind of trying to play more defensively and someone is trying to play very aggressively, the person who's playing very aggressively can just kind of take over the entire board and score 18 points type of thing. And yes, Linchpin does have the comeback mechanic of if you table your opponent, you can get a 23 at the end, but there's only so much
it can be a 43 at the end.
It can be.
Or I guess it could be a 40. It caps at 40. But yeah.
It's definitely true. It's easier to bottle people up on Hammer and Anvil, right? Because there's like less width to have to control. You can really just like locker them much easier than on something like Crucible.
Yeah, absolutely. We should play more Hammer and Anvil, I feel like. We're very hesitant to play it, but I think it's worth exploring more, especially as it shows up in a lot of tournaments. We should practice on it more.
Sure.
I think it's worth keeping in our repertoire. Cool. Moving on to round 4, we're playing a little more straightforward mission here. Scorched Earth, Search and Destroy, Swift Action. I have been advocating for Scorched Earth, Search and Destroy for a while. I'm very excited to see it in a pack, and I'm very curious to see how this goes. So let's break it down. We're playing into Awakened Dynasty Necrons. Mr. Olson Johnson, the Deceiver himself, would love to tell you all about this interesting Crons list.
Yeah, all right. We got Awakened Dynasty Necrons. We got a Nightbringer. We got a Hexmark Destroyer with the Anasic Dermal Bond. That's the +1 to hit aura. We've got a Luminor Xeris, Emotech the Stormlord, Locust Lord with the Netherrealm Casket. I believe that's the -1 to hit and stealth. That's the same thing. Stealth and cover, or whatever that ended up being changed to. Translocation Overlord. That's the Overlord who auto-advances his squad when they choose to advance. a Plasmancer, a Technomancer, a squad of 10 Tesla Immortals, a Reanimator, a squad of 6 Scarabs, a Spider, a squad of 6 Wraiths, 2 Crypto Thralls, 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers with Gauss Destructors, and 10 Lich Guard with Sword and Shield.
Yeah. Well, this was another stomp. I mean, Search and Destroy, very good for armies that like melee and want to go fast. Classic World Leaders deployment type. And yeah, this was very much the same, right? Like he went first. Yes, he went first and did a whole lot of basically nothing. I ingressed and slammed him with my entire army bottom of 1, and he stayed in his deployment zone until the top of turn 5, basically. So yeah, there's just like with Necrons having no fallback and charge or shoot. Wink, wink.
Well, they do. If they have Royal Wardens, but yeah, none to see in this list.
Not in this list, yeah. Then, you know, if you don't have fallback and do stuff, then you're automatically at a huge disadvantage into Space Wolves, right? Like that's why Guard is so cursed, is because as soon as I keep them in combat, if I'm tagging them on my terms and I'm fast enough that it will be on my terms, it's really hard for them to do anything, basically. It's just rough for them to try to interact around the board. And, you know, like, what is this guy screening with? Every unit he has is, like, threatened by a squad of Thunderwolves, and everything is important as well. The one thing that's, like, actually durable is Wraiths. And, yeah, I, like, repeatedly charge them, not for the intent of killing them, but just to keep them in combat. Charge him with Thunderwolves. I'd kill, like, 3 models. He would slowly heal, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was that they didn't launch a charge at me until turn 5. And by that point, it's like, whatever. Yeah, you can go score a 10. I don't really care. You've gotten 5 points on primary the rest of the game. So, yeah, he just doesn't have screens. He doesn't have disposable stuff. He's getting his important units charged by Thunderwolves. It was just super bad.
Cool beans. Let's break it on down to round 5, the semifinals. We're playing Take and Hold, Crucible of Battle, Raise Banners. We said we were playing more ordinary missions toward the end, and this is about as ordinary as it gets. Love banners, by the way. People should use that more often. Super fun little mini game to get a couple of points that can be pretty important, but not always, crazy game changing. One of the only ones that I feel like actually really incentivizes you to bring some battle line, because leaving 2 or 3 points on the table, it feels very silly. And you're playing into Chaos Knights. Bummer that no one on the show plays Chaos Knights. Nick, you want to try your best and let us know what's in this list?
Yeah, I think I could assemble 2 brain cells. So we got a Stalker with an Aura of Terror. Sorry. 5 Brigands. I'm not going to apologize, dude. You know what you do. You know.
I'm about to come down there and make you apologize.
Bad dog.
5 Brigands, 4 Carnivores, 2 squads of 10 Blue Horrors, the Blue Scribe and Blue Scribes, sorry, or 2 of them, and the Changeling. So yeah, pretty standard Chaos Knights list, except for Jason Bird's little blue twist on it.
Well, he was blue, and I beat up his guys. Yeah, this man tried to rush me, and it really did not work. Well, you're going into an unfavored matchup, lads. Don't throw caution to the wind and put your dick on the line and try to run in. It will not go well. Yeah. Part of the disparity here, I know Bird has played against the Wolf Rush before. I think it has been a little while. And the Vindicators definitely don't help. But part of the problem here was, like, I knew literally every single thing his army does and was trying to do. And, like, I think he was, I don't know, maybe surprised isn't the right word, but, like, I think there was some plays went for this game that he just wasn't expecting. Like, you know, the bog down. I've said this before on the show, but, like, or maybe, yeah, either way. I've said this before on the show. The best way to beat Chaos Knights is to bog them down. Chaos Knights really want the most important part of their characteristic is the movement 12 or 14. So if you're denying that to them, it's incredibly important. You're dictating who they can shoot, fight, and you're also, you know, if they're not on an objective, you're keeping them off an objective for an entire turn unless they want to waste all of their damage for that turn. So if you can use any, like, trash unit to keep a carnivore from charging you, absolutely do that. because 5 JPI with AOC does not really die to a carnivore. 5 Wolfen absolutely does not die to a carnivore. So there were all sorts of times this game where I would just like shoot a carnivore. Okay, my Vindicator whiffed and did almost nothing. Fine. 5 Wolfen, go do 2 damage to him, 4 damage to him, and keep him there for a turn. I'll dictate the pace of this game. Thank you very much. So yeah, employing that tactic on repeat, just getting the remnant squads of Wolfen in there to bog him down was really quite crippling. And I think the way CK need to play this matchup, having played it a couple times, when Colby and I played it, I needed to I think we played like a 4-hour game because I used like 3 of those hours because I'm just looking at the table thinking about how do I need to move around this where I can actually engage on my terms. And I think it comes down to the Brigands are just kind of dead weight in this matchup. It's so weird because they're dead weight, but you also need them. So if you have like 4 or 5 Brigands, I think keeping 3 of them in a little hit squad is really important. And then send the other 2 forward and your Stalker, because who cares about him? Send them forward to take the first hit. Because if you get a 5 Wolfen doesn't kill a Brigand, but that Brigand auto-sees those Wolfen. Similarly, auto-sees those JPI. So that can hold an objective. Also, rotate Island Shields is very good into the Vindicators. So you have lots of ways to kind of survive against something that's not a Thunderwolf squad. And if you're getting hit by a Thunderwolf squad, that's fine, because then your hit squad of 3 Brigands plus responding Carnivores can come in and cripple that Wolf squad. What you really don't want to have happen is the Wolf squads come in and engage you on their terms, kill a Carnivore, pile in, tag the Brigand. The Brigand all of a sudden either stay in combat and do nothing or fall back and do nothing. Getting the Brigands tagged is like the worst case scenario. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird that I'm saying to lead with them then. But you kind of have to like use your first couple nights as sacrifices, and the Carnivores are definitely more important than the Brigands. So leading with them, little counterintuitive, but I think it's the right move to try to win the game.
Very nice. Final score of this game, a lot to a little. I remember tuning into War Games Live to watch the semifinals that were on the main stream. This was kind of on the I think it was on the Patreon stream. And I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, all right, so that's turn 1. And over to you. And then Joe's like, all right, well, they're done with Battle Round 1. Let's see how the other game's going. Oh, and it's over.
Oh.
So, yeah, is what it is. Let's move on into the finals then. This was a very exciting game. Again, on War Games Live. Big shout out to War Games Live. Not a sponsor of the show, but definitely a partner of the show. We absolutely love Joe. We should sponsor him, is how that should flow, actually, now that I think about it. There should be a stat check cam. We should talk to Joe about that. That's the thing that we would put money toward because we love him so much. Anyway, round 6, Linchpin, Tipping Point, Fog of War. This is probably like... This might be Mission C. This is Mission C, is it not?
I think so.
Yeah, so this is our one letter. I think people have kind of honed in on this being maybe the best mission of the recommendations. It's a ton of fun. Fog of War is awesome. It radically changes a lot of dynamics as soon as you start thinking about it. Super cool. Tipping Point is decent, and Linchpin is probably the best primary right now. So let's jump right into this as finals here. You don't think Linchpin? I think Linchpin's a great primary. Anyway, you're playing into Bringers of Flame, Sisters of Battle. Our boy Nick Fromm, who was at Charity Hammer, got to see him there. Didn't get to play him, unfortunately, but he's a great dude and a friend of the show, and definitely one of the up and coming power hitters of the Pacific Northwest. So very excited to see him here on this top table here. Playing Sisters of Battle, one of the best armies in the game, and definitely a matchup that we would like to be able to pair you into should we get the opportunity at Champs Cup, I think. So, Nick, why don't you break down the list for us? And then I'm excited to hear how this game went, because it was a nail-biter.
Uh-oh, dude, he's leaking the team matrix. All right, anyways, so the Bringers of Flame, Sisters of Battle. I think, Germany at WTC was the only people... brave enough to run any other detachment. We have the Demonifuge, which for those who are not well versed in Sisters of Battle lore is the what is it, Harlequin guy and the lady running around.
Keitel and Stern, yeah. Oh man.
Yep. That is their correct unit name though. We got Morven Vol. We got a Palatine with Righteous Rage. We got the Triumph of St. Catherine. Then we've got 3 Immolators, 3 Castigators, 2 squads of 10 Dominions, who actually ended up being more like 4 squads of 5, I believe.
Crazy.
1 squad of 3 Paragon Warsuits, 1 squad of 10 Seraphim, and then 1 squad of 10 Novitiates.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple unique parts of this list, but for the most part, by the way, Tyler, your mic is super staticky. So I'd mute yourself if you're not talking. A couple unique parts of this list. I mean, most of it's pretty standard, right? Castigators, Immolators, Morven Ball with Paragons. Hello, middle school. They're all very iconic, powerful units. And Dominions as well, the 10 Seraphim with the Flamers. The Novitiates are very cool. And they're joined by a Paladin with Righteous Rage. This is a really cool combo that I've seen some people pick up. But basically it gives you a second melee counterpunch unit. Unlike the Morven Ball unit, it's completely disposable. This unit goes in and it can discard a Miracle Dice so that the Paladin's Righteous Rage no. Okay, so the Paladin's datasheet says you can discard a Miracle Dice, and then every time you successfully wound someone, you cause a mortal wound in addition. The Paladin also has a leader ability that gives her mortal wounds, so she's just like a lieutenant for Space Marines. And then she joins the Novitiates, who say reroll 1s to wound, so the Paladin hits on 2s rerolling 1s, or full reroll to wound if the target's on an objective. So you're rerolling to hit, you're going for those lethals. The lethals will automatically wound and cause a mortal wound in addition because they're a successful wound. And then her sword is like 4/2/2 or something like that. And you can discard up to 3 Miracle Dice every time you activate to get +1 strength and attack for every dice you discard. So if you have 4 crap dice to discard, which sisters have a ridiculous number of Miracle Dice, it's one of the things that I'd like to see changed about them. But if you have just 4 crap dice lying around, all of a sudden your sword is, instead of 4 attacks at 4/2/2, it's 7 attacks at 7/2/2. Every successful wound does a mortal wound in addition. So, and then there's like some garbage attack from the Novitiate. So they're a very good, like cheap melee trading piece. And I like that tech by Nick quite a bit. The other piece of tech is the Demonifuge. They're a lone op with fights first and free heroic. They've got like 5 attacks at 6/2/2 or something like that, and then 6 attacks at 4/2/1 from the Harlequin. So they win like skirmish battles basically because they fight first and free heroic. So they can, very easily support like a squad of 5 Doms on an objective. You have to answer it unless you want your opponent to get primary. Okay, your answer comes out. It's 5 jump pack intercessors. This squad heroics in, kills 3 or 4 of the intercessors. The remaining intercessors don't flip the objective. So that's the general idea there, and I really like it because they're a lone op. It's really hard to kind of dislodge that combination. I actually do not to toot my own horn, but I think I do a really good job this game of kind of dismantling that a little bit, and you can see that on turn 3 if you watch the VOD. So yeah, this was a fantastic game. Not to spoil the result yet, but this does end up being a 1-point game. So it's definitely, and it's one of the only games this weekend, if not the only one that I truly had to play cagey, because I know how good of a player Nick Fromm is, and I also know what his army can do to mine if I play recklessly or make any mistakes. So really cool game. I end up going first here, which I thought was big in my favor. It ended up being very scary for me. I much would have rather have gone second. Yeah, I did something this game that I don't usually do, which is I left the Wolf Lord on the table. I wanted his 1 CP auto advance 9 to be a constant threat behind a midfield ruin. I wanted him always worried about the fact that my guys could bullet out and charge any of his tanks. And instead, I put a Vindicator and the early Ingress Lieutenant with a basic squad of Thunderwolves in Strat Reserve. His tanks are all easy enough for my squads of Thunderwolves to kill. Doesn't really matter if my Wolf Lord's in there. And he still has to, he has to treat them with the same amount of respect, regardless of whether or not the Wolf Lord's in there. I get a little less value because I can't ingress for free, so it makes use of the Lord's free strat a little bit worse, but that's fine. More importantly, he gets a Vindicator in Strat Reserve. His army has the speed advantage on mine for the first time in forever, so he can actually kind of control the lanes a lot better than I can control his movement because his army is such long range and is so fast. Putting a Vindicator in Strat Reserve really changes that because if I remove his screening in the first turn or two, he runs out of things to prevent a Vindicator from coming in and going, hey, Castigator, goodbye. And that was kind of what I went for this game. So yeah, end up going first, which ends up being pretty big for the game result at the end. And we spend those first couple turns trading trash resources. So this is where the 2 squads of JPI and 2 squads of Wolfen at the beginning, that trash element, the trading that I mentioned, really comes into its own. And this is one of the areas where I think Nick did a good job of exploiting one of the weaknesses of Space Wolves, which is Wolfen OC0. Everyone bitches and moans about Wolfen so much. I never hear them talk about the main downside of the unit, which is OC0, you can't do actions, and also you can't flip opponent primaries with the Wolfen unit. And given that Wolfen fit into the trading unit role, one of the things you want from a trading unit is it's good enough to go in, hit decently hard, tank decently hard, which Wolfen both do very well for the points, especially. But then if there's one OC left on that objective, I don't flip the point and don't accomplish the whole point of what I set out to do that turn. That's really horrendous. Speaking of things that are really horrendous, why does my arm look like it's 5 feet long in this picture?
I was going to ask at some point. You
It
freaking
looks like
tree.
I dislocated my elbow. I don't know. What's the other one? The shoulder.
Shoulder?
My shoulder doing that move. Yeah, there we go. I work at a
Welcome to
tissue
anatomy
bank, by the way.
class with Lukas Troller. Man sells body parts, doesn't know what they're called. Keep it going.
True. So, yeah. Where the hell was I? Oh, yeah. So Wolfen. So you can do all sorts of tricks, like put 2 units on an objective, like a 5-man squad surrounding a single model on an objective from a different squad, and the Wolfen can't get to the back squad, so they can't contest the objective. All sorts of tricks like that are really effective against Space Wolves, and I think more people should be exploiting them rather than bitching that the army is overpowered. I'm not saying there aren't things in there that are overtuned, but complaining without thinking about solutions is silly. So yeah, that is one of the ways to exploit Wolfen, and Nick does a great job of it this game because he baits out my JPI very early. It's hard for me to go and contest his objectives with his little trash, awkward, reactive move squads without committing Thunderwolves or a Vindicator or something like that. So we do a little bit of trading early on. I get some good secondary cards on turn 2 that really incentivize me to use my JPI and my Wolfen, so I do. I kill 3 units of screens. I kill a Seraphim. He's down to basically hulls and Morven Vol. And at that point, we can begin the game in earnest. I ingress on turn bottom of 2. And then on my turn 3, I send all the wolves in. And he does a very good job of kind of compartmentalizing. He doesn't prioritize my squad that's in his back lines because it's not on an objective and it's not overly threatening. He kind of sections it off by blocking it with 2 immolators. And then the game kind of comes down to a very clutch Morven Vol 10-inch charge around a wall. He switches into kind of preemptively. This is one of the things you can do if sisters are going second, is you can kind of ask them what they want their triumph auras to be and then plan accordingly. I mean, she's a busted model, so like they're all going to be good. But if they don't have double miracle dice, you can kind of plan accordingly. Or if they don't have 6 up feel no pain, you can plan accordingly because it's WA timing. So they have to kind of tell you in advance what their game plan is. So he very intelligently switches into double miracle dice on the go turn, because he's built up so many miracle dice from me killing his trash units, and the fact that we've basically done nothing for 3 turns, 3 battle rounds. He's got like 15 dice backed up or whatever the hell. So he switches into double miracle dice to say, hey, your Vindicator can't come in and get good shots on Morven Vol's unit because I'll blank the first 2 that fail. And when I go to get you, I'm going to launch a very reliable charge. So he ends up going for an 11-inch charge. The Triumph makes a 10 because of +1 to charge. He commits a 6 and tries to roll a 4 up, fails, CPs it, commits another 6, tries to roll a 4 up and makes it. So that was like the clutch moment in the game where I'm like, okay, if he fails the 75%, I'm being chilling. And he made the 75. So I'm like, damn it, now we got a game. So he comes in, clobbers the Wolf Lord squad, gets them down to like the 2 characters and a guy and a half or something like that. So it's a crippled unit, but it still could do something. And then from there,
Quick question on that point there. Do you think it's worth, if let's say you have the resources to do that particular kind of damage, do you think it's worth trying to challenge out with Vol here? Or either of the characters that valuable?
I don't think so. The Space Wolf characters become a lot less useful once you kill the squad because they don't get +1 damage on their fists. You also lose things like killing the squad is very important. You lose the +1 damage. You lose the lethal hits from the lieutenant. You lose +1 to advance and charge from the Lord. there's all sorts of abilities you're losing. So even like a 1 or a 2-man Thunderwolf squad, like he got me down to, is still like kind of a threat. So I think what he was going for there was to kill all 6 of them, and he just came up a little bit short. But I think that's that's by far the better move.
Gotcha. Cool.
So yeah, he goes in, he cripples that wolf squad. And at this point, I'm like, well, damn, I've lost 2.5 wolf squads, but maybe I can eke the game out on points. And it's like so many tiny little, itty bitty interactions in the last turn or two that end up just barely losing me the game by 1. Sisters are very good in that end game state where they can use their miracle ice to guarantee that all their plays work. And especially with things like advance and shoot, he can go, okay, I'm going to auto advance onto this objective to get this secondary and kill your guy. I'm going to, auto advance back here to 100% get all of the points that I have available to me this turn. So what we can see here is at the very end of the game, he's like, just barely making these advanced plays because he has tons of 6s banked up and just stealing all the objectives and having that huge end game primary swing that I was trying so hard to deny him over the course of the game. So, this was... that cycles back to the reason I really did not want to go first this game, in fact, because it really offered him an opportunity, especially considering, the commit turn was turn 3. So it was actually like fairly late, especially for a Space Wolves game. But he was able to kill my army so effectively on turn 2 and 3 that by the time turn 5 rolled around, I didn't have any more gas to try to battle him up. And he, broke out and jumped onto all the objectives and took them. So, yeah, a very interesting game. If you want to see, I think we both do a very good job of what our armies are trying to do that game, right? Like I'm trying to put him in the locker and prevent him from interacting on the points. You can see this. I think I do a very good job on my turn 2 and 3 of making his life incredibly awkward. And then he does a very good job on turn 4 and 5 of breaking out of a pressure situation. So if you find yourself getting bottled in by World Eaters or Orcs or Space Wolves on the regular, I'd give this game a watch. I mean, he's got a lot of resources at his disposal because he's playing Sisters, but a couple of like the fundamental things he's doing there are really effective strategies for breaking out of jail. So I'd go watch those if you want tips on how to do that.
Fantastic. And I don't remember what the tiebreakers are here. Where did that drop you down to in the placings?
I come in 5th, unfortunately.
Win path, people. We've been talking about this forever. Come on.
Yeah, we played the 6th round to have a true undefeated, which maybe we want to talk about that for a quick sec, but definitely interesting. I get the appeal of not wanting to have 2 undefeated people and then have some arbitrary thing decide who comes in 2nd place, but it does feel very bad to like thunder smash 5 people and then win like the closest game of the tournament lose the closest game of the tournament by far by 1 point and then bump down to 5th place. So it's like, what's the point of doing the
win path
true
placings,
undefeated
people.
thing if we don't do win path?
Yeah,
a little frustrating, but
yeah, that is pretty silly. I didn't realize you came in 5th. You should absolutely have gotten. Did you get like all the 2nd place stuff or no?
Nope. Harry got
really
butt
stupid.
touched in round 2 and then submarined and then came in 2nd, of course.
Yeah. I know John's putting a lot of work in and like his events are great, but big change to happen for next time. Like you got 2nd of that event.
But also like big change, but also small change. It flips a switch. Like this is not some
I'm saying
systemic issue.
Big as in important. A very
Sweet.
important change you can make for next time.
Cool. Sweet. Well, great event and to run on there, Lucas. I've got to get out of here as quickly as possible, so we're going to blitz through some listener questions, and then we'll jump out of here. If you'd like to ask listener questions, you can super chat them here, or you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/statcheck and ask them in the question threads as they pop up in the Discord. First question here comes from our boy McQuirp. 2 parts. Basically, the first part is... awesome final, Lucas. Would you change your macro strategy if you played it again? And then second part is, are you guys going to Cascade Clash in October? I'm not. I'll be in Spain. Are you guys going? Easy question.
Nope. I don't think so. I think I'm not able to go that weekend.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of Warhammer going on right now. Unfortunately, we'll not be at Cascade Clash, but if you are in the Pacific Northwest and you're looking for a tournament, that is a great one to go to. They run a hell of an event. You can listen to our episode about it last year. It was awesome. It's going to only get better this year. Anyway, Lucas, would you change your macro strategy if you were to play that game over again?
No, I would change micro decisions.
Gotcha. And also, pro tip, go second. Oh, hilarious! I tried to put in the next comment from Grant, but I got blocked. Apparently, they think I'm spamming my own chat. Grant asks, how many 40mm bases can each of the TAC members fit in their mouth?
I don't know. That's a choking hazard, Grant. You shouldn't try that, dude.
Probably like 25, 30. Yeah.
Probably one more than Lukas.
Okay, 32.
God damn it.
Sweet. And then Henry the Wizard asks, what are your thoughts on the shooty side of Vanguard? People often talk about bringing enough guns in a melee army to, quote, keep your opponent honest, but what exactly is the goal for honest? Killing 2 to 3 units in shooting, ability to explode a tank, is 500 to 750 points too much to dedicate to shooting in Vanguard? Curious about zones and Neuro Tyrant, T-Fex, and Exocrine, thanks in advance. Love all the bugs content watching your games. All right, so Lukas can fit one more than I can right now because I don't have a 40mm to hand. I don't think. I'm not going to try. Anyway. Shooting in Vanguard,
Lukas,
super important.
Do CPR if you choke, man. I'm sorry.
Why do you always remind me that you're not going to help me when I endanger my own life?
You're not the medical professional in the building anyway, Nick. It'll be fine. Yeah, I think you need some guns. Exactly. You cannot play Vanguard without any guns. That is not a thing that you can do. It goes really poorly. I'm just going to go through the units, then we'll talk about the philosophy. Zones and Neuro Tyrant are bad. They're so bad. I hate them so much. I wanted to love them. I brought them to War Masters. They're so cool! And they're terrible. Being 24-inch range and only moving in 5 makes them incredibly awkward to use in any real way. The Strat Reserve Uppy Downeying is nice, but honestly, I don't have the CP for it. Even with the 10 freebies from the Tyrant. I can't be spending on that, and Strat Reserve shooting sucks balls. So I don't like them. Honestly, the only place I like them is in Unending Swarm, when you can give them the +2 move enhancement, and then they can actually get places, and don't mind being up close because there's so much screening in the way to keep them from getting hurt. I don't like them in Vanguard. Exocrines, you saw, I have 2 on my list. I love them. They're fantastic. Stupidly efficient unit. Should probably go up in points, but they keep not for some reason. Great data sheet. I think 2 is the right number. I think 3 is probably too many points. And 1 is not enough to keep your opponent honest. T-Fex, very solid. I think this is totally valid. You can push some things around and upgrade the second Exocrine to a T-Fex. 1 Exocrine, 1 T-Fex, love that. Or you can go to 2 T-Fexes if you're feeling extra spicy. If you're only going to take 1 shooty bug, it should be a T-Fex. I would take like 1 T-Fex or 2 Exocrine or 1 of each. Or like 2 T-Fex, 1 Exocrine. Like that's my ladder of what shooting I would put in. Also, no one's talking about it, but if you're feeling spicy, I think that Barb Gaunts in Vanguard might have some serious play. That's a unit that does not mind uppy downeying a lot and can actually put out some serious hurt with those blast guns in addition to the slowing effect. But it's kind of a non-bow because Vanguard already kills all the blastable units really well anyway, so I don't really know. I think 2 shooting pieces is the right amount for a melee list. I've got 2 Exocrines. Lukas has 2 Vindicators. It's a nice number, not because of how much output, but because of how many lanes it can control. I don't know if you have any other further thoughts on this as a philosophical question, Lukas.
No, the lane spit is very accurate.
Sweet. Sam asks, how many owls would you have to see in a day before you thought something was wrong? Lukas says 3. I think 3 is a great day.
I think 2.
2?
1 is like an owl. 2, like, it's kind of an omen, dude.
I don't know, man. I love owls. Maybe 4. I need a bunch. He then asks, what are your expectations heading into Champs Cup as a team, and what have been some of the things that you and the team have done to best prepare yourselves?
We're going to fucking win.
Yes. We're going to beat Team Stat Check, which we're not a part of, not because they didn't want us, but because we wanted to play with our locals. And so instead they went out and got Liam, VSL, Pumbaa, and Typhus. Chill team. We're going to beat the crap out of them. It's going to be awesome. And if we're right about this and we do beat them, they're going to have so much egg on their face and look so stupid. And if we're wrong and we're just shit-talking because we know they're way better than us kind of top to bottom, what are they going to do about it?
Imagine not only running Gene Stealer cults, but also Tyranids, and then also a World Eater list from a year and a half ago. Keck W, boys. Keck W's in the chat.
Awful team. Unplayable. Agreed. McCorp asks a second question, follow-up to his first question. Back on that final versus Sisters, Tyler and I were arguing in chat about secret missions for Sisters. Were you surprised that Fromm did not take a secret mission? Do you think he should have taken one?
I mean, given the way the game turned out, he definitely should have. But the problem is, like, there's so many sketchy moments on the turn 3 and 4 that if one thing goes wrong, or he
Yeah,
makes
but the turn
one
3
mistake,
moments are already over.
huh?
It's end of battle round 3 that you secret, right? So the turn 3 moments are already over. It's just the turn 4 moments.
Did he charge? Because, like, the thing I'm thinking of is when he charged my big Wolf Lord squad with Vol, right? Like, if he fails that charge, all of a sudden, I guess he probably still gets the secret mission. He just doesn't, like, get as many primary at the end. I don't fucking know.
Right.
Secret missions are cringe and should be removed from the game.
You should have taken Unbroken Wall. All right. Vanguard's Nids questions from Richard Kilpatrick, who has a Turtwig as his profile picture. Absolute favorite of mine. So big ups for that. How much do you buy into the idea that Vanguard is only effective when the opponent doesn't have reps into it? How much does this affect singles, do you think? Lucas is a more qualified answer to this question than I am because he has experience into Vanguard Nids. And I'm going to, I'm biased.
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's definitely fucking hell. I don't know.
If you don't know, I can give some thoughts.
Yeah, go for it, and maybe I'll rip off you.
Totally. So I think there is absolutely an element of this is the gotcha-iest army that I know of in 40k right now. And if your opponent doesn't know what they're doing and you're an asshole about it, you can beat basically anyone. And that's super lame. Don't be that guy. Explain everything to your opponent. Make sure anytime you reactive move that conversation is, hey, by the way, you're moving within 9 of me. I could reactive move flat 6 with up to 2 units right now. Could be these 2, could be any of these 4. Would you like to make that move? Yes? Okay, cool. I'm going to do that. Never fling a reactive move on your opponent without explaining to them the possibilities. The same goes for the battle shocking nonsense. It's crazy nonsense. But also, a lot of these abilities are just fundamentally strong. Battle shock in your opponent's fight phase is nonsense. Table-wide, no restrictions. Nonsense. Reactive move flat 6 into 6-inch slow up is nonsense. These are just good tools, right? This Broodlord Flyrant Deathy stack-up combo that makes it incredibly difficult to charge a unit on your expansion is nonsense. And there's not a lot of counterplay there if you position your stuff carefully and appropriately. I absolutely think that people can get better at playing against it, but I do not think it's nearly as bad as Innis makes it out to be, where, like, I think he says, no one loses to Vanguard their second rep into Vanguard. That's just fundamentally not true. It's a good army with good tools. It has some weaknesses, but honestly, in my experience at least, those weaknesses have a lot more to do with what it's playing against than who it's playing against. It struggles with armor, not with people who know how to play against it. It has the tools for you to outsmart your opponent.
All armies get worse when your opponent has reps into it. Vanguard is the same.
Agree with that. Here's a good question, maybe for Nick, though I'm sure we all have thoughts here. This comes in, I don't know why it's not sending, there we go, from our boy Paul Batello, who asks, what are your predictions for T-Sun's nerfs? I'm not the biggest Magnus fan, so if you tell me he's about to get nerfed into the ground, I'll stay strong. He failed his Legion, in my humble opinion.
I don't know. I mean, what, the nerfs coming are points?
Yeah.
If anything, like, I'd imagine them to revert the Cultist points nerf. That was a stupid thing to bring down. That was, what, 10-point decrease on Cultists?
Yeah.
So that shit should go back up.
T-Sun's Codex is coming out soon, right? It's on the roadmap?
No.
No?
No.
I thought it was on the latest roadmap.
That was
remember
a
the
fake
rumor?
map.
Remember the roadmap is absolutely nothing, and then Guard, Eldar, and Imperial Knights.
Yeah, so
gotcha.
AKA
Okay.
Snorefest for the next 6 months.
Cool.
Anyways.
My suspicion, Codex or not, is Innis's old adage, if you can't be balanced, you get to be bad. I think T-Suns might get dropped off a cliff and become unplayable.
Who knows? We've been saying that for like a year, man.
Yeah, they're playing with 10 tactical marines and Magnus and fucking wally-whopping people, so they're probably gonna be fine no matter what.
If they wanted to nerf T-Suns at this point, really all you could do is just like point Magnus to the moon. Be like, all right, if you want to play Magnus, which you have to, because he's so good, he's now like 60 points more or like 80 points more, something stupid, right? That, or they just like if they don't want to do that and they're like, we want you guys to have like one less trash unit, then it's probably just revert the Mutalith and like Cultist point drops that happened 2 patches.
Mutaliths are offensively undercosted. Undercosted.
Whenever someone's playing 3 of something, probably a little too cheap, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last question in here.
One more point. They're not going to do this because it's point changes, but what I really want to see is Magnus's +1 to hit and wound thing becomes one of his pick 3s.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a great change.
They should get rid of that stupid hazardous one.
Yes. Last question here comes from Luke. As Tyler, after your charity ham experience, how best we add 3 Tidewall to every towel list? Is the optimum strategy pivoting all 3 as much as possible? Probably. I think that 1 is genuinely worth playing. I'd put 2 Breacher squads with Cadre Fireblades in it, and then still have the Ethereal Strike team on the backfield to slingshot up later. But it's a fun thing. Maybe I'll play around with it later on TTS or something. Anyway.
Tyler, how many spores is the optimal amount in a list, dude?
How many Sporocysts? Oh my god, -12. God, I miss that data sheet. Bring them back, GW. I miss my boys.
You miss the model too?
Nick, don't do it. Don't do it. No, don't do it to him, dude.
What?
Did I leave my Sporocysts up there?
Yeah. The optimal number of Sporocysts on the table is 2. They're sitting on my kitchen table right now.
Oh, I'm a dumbass. Oh.
Bruh.
I thought I had all my models. I really did. I guess I have Sporocyst blindness. I can't see them anymore because they've been erased. Anyway, I gotta run. Check out the plugs in the description. I didn't run through them, but they're all wonderful people and wonderful things. If you want to keep the conversation going, join us on Patreon, get coaching. It's great. Buy from our sponsors. They're wonderful people. We're going to be off for Champs Cup this following weekend, and then I'm going to be moving to Spain, so it's going to be a little bit of a gap, but we will record a podcast all about Champs Cup, maybe with the whole Champs Cup team on. We'll see. That might be a little bit of a logistical nightmare, but 8 people, maybe 9 with Nick on there at once could be kind of crazy.
So sick.
So look forward to that extravaganza that's coming up. How well we do at Champs Cup will be inversely proportional to how long it takes to do it. If we win, it'll be the day after, even though I need to pack to move that day. If we go 2 and 4, it'll happen in 2 weeks. So look forward to that either way. Anyway, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
I'm Lucas.
And we'll see you next time for more of the wonderful world of Warhammer 40k. We're also got a Balanced Slate coming out. That's going to be exciting. Look forward to coverage of that. Check out the rest of the shows. And until next time, we will see you later.